So some of you may know I spent most of my adult life in the UK and I'm a British citizen, so I really only had experience with the NHS in terms of my adult interaction with taking care of my health. And a lot of you guys have asked, what has it been like, that transition? And, well, hard. First of all, big difference. You come to the end of your appointment or your blood test or even before these items, and it's money please. You better have some money. And that may sound obvious, but it is so much more pervasive than just the act of handing over a credit card or paying your insurance bill every month. You feel like the healthcare here is a class system. And I think that's simply because it is. Like, you go through these different insurance packages and like maybe they're like bronze, silver, gold, platinum. That's literally how you can filter them on the side of the screen. And I mean, yes, they're signifiers to denote how much coverage you're gonna have or your, I don't even know, your deductible shenanigans. I can't even try to stay neutral on this subject. I think it's ridiculous. I know the NHS is not perfect, and I know the UK and the NHS in general have been in and continue to be in a lot of trouble. So I'm not just sitting here being like, they got it all figured out and we're screwed up here. No, that's not what I'm saying. But in terms of a care for your people, all I can say is in the UK, I felt universally cared for. And here, I feel like if I have the funds to pay for care, then I'm allowed to be healthy. So easily number one, the most confusing thing has been navigating what insurance to get. Luckily, through my job, I'm self-employed, but I get insurance through my job, sort of. It is pretty much, you get this package and that's that. So I didn't really have to choose so intricately. Number two has been finding the right doctors. Your choice in doctors. In the UK, your GP pretty much does everything. They see kids, they see adults, they see asthmatics, they see people with mental health conditions. That doctor has the power to treat all of those things, to prescribe you antidepressants, to prescribe you an inhaler, to treat a baby and an elderly person. And this is all I ever knew. So I had an endocrinology team and I had my GP. That was pretty much it. Every year I'd go for an eye exam where they'd screen my eyes and take scans of my retinas and all that stuff to make sure there wasn't any degradation in my eyes due to diabetes. But that was pretty much it. Here, I have spent so much time registering with different doctors. So much so to the point where I finally registered with the GP, or your primary care physician as they call it here. And I was like, okay, great. I'm diabetic, so I need my insulin prescription. And she just said, oh, no. Like, I don't prescribe insulin. Absolutely not. You have to go to your endocrinologist for that. So I did have an appointment with my endocrinologist, but because he was, a good endocrinologist that had a waiting list, I couldn't see him for like 3 months. So I was like, oh, what do I do? And I was also so shocked that the primary care couldn't prescribe insulin. It was totally categorically unwilling. So that has been a big shock to me, in that in order to get the treatment that I need, I have to go to all these different doctors, and every doctor has somewhat of a different system. So, you go in, you fill out the paperwork, you go through all the like initial questions, and then they want their own blood work, which all costs money. And yeah, at the end of all these appointments, money please. You gotta have the money to pay for the insurance, and then you gotta have the money to take time off work to go see these various different doctors, because they're different places. The transport to get there or the transit time to get there is different. It just demands so much of a person, and you have to be so organized and on top of it, which I always thought, like in the UK, if you're your own advocate, you can get the care you need. And I still believe that. but you would always be getting that through your general practitioner for the most part. Whereas in the US, I feel equally, if not more, the need to advocate for myself, because you're choosing doctors from a directory of 1,000 different options, which sounds great, and there is a plus to that, but it's also incredibly complicated and confusing and time consuming to look up all the reviews and make sure you're choosing a doctor that is going to be good for you. The other thing I think is a very dividing factor that I've seen is the amount of time you need to be able to devote, yes, but also savvy, smart nature you need to have to know that, for example, I can go to this pharmacy and I can get a better rate there. My insurance works best with this pharmacy, or sometimes I should use my insurance for this prescription, but other times I should use a coupon or a good RX, that is actually going to make that more cost effective. You need to be constantly on the alert and bobbing and weaving through these different options to be savvy to make sure you are getting the best deal. Which, I'll be honest with you, deal and healthcare, these are just concepts that in my adult life have not been alive in my mind. And I know I'm very, 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 very lucky to say that. But I feel you need to be pretty darn educated and have the confidence to call places up and to use coupons that you might not be sure are going to work, or advocate for yourself when you know it's right through the insurance, but the person providing isn't providing the same thing that you were told you were going to get. These are all things that the consumer here really needs to have if you're going to get the most bang for your buck, I guess, which don't we all want that? Especially when you're dealing with a chronic condition that you have many different medications that you have to keep renewing every single month. You want to make sure you're doing the smartest thing possible. So we relocated about a year ago, and because of this being a whole new system to me, I am only just getting to grips with things and getting in place a structure of how I'm going to get my medications every month. And I really don't mean to sound like I'm complaining or bashing the American healthcare system, but this is just what I've experienced, and a genuine comparison to what I experienced on the NHS in the UK for the last 15 years. And I should say, as an addendum to the it's free in the UK, the NHS is a taxed system. So I believe it is about 20% of the people's income tax goes toward the NHS. Don't quote me on it, but I believe that's a general gist. So you are paying for it in a certain sense, absolutely, but it's in alignment in terms of the percentage to your own personal income taxes. And a lot of people have a big problem about that, because then the more wealthy are funding it more so than the less wealthy. And I hear that, but from an ethical and moral perspective, I personally find that to be a more suitable way to care for a public. And if I'm paying more than people that are less fortunate financially, I'm really okay with that. But I understand that that can be a very divisive subject, and I get it. But I'm so certain of where I stand on that front that I'm happy to say it. And if you want to come at me in the comments, that's fine. Moving to the US, and I always knew this, and it was a factor I had to get to grips with when we decided to move. And it's so much more complicated than I could ever have understood watching US bloggers and whatnot talk about it. You can hear people talk about this, but it's not till you're really in the thick of it that you realize just how complicated and overwhelming it is. This isn't meant to be a bash on the US system. The quality of care that I've found has been excellent. It's just the route to get to that care and what you need to have access to that care bothers me a lot. And I'm lucky because I have the capability to do what I need to do and pay for what I need to pay to get access to what I need to not only survive, but thrive and live a healthy life. So I fully stand up and appreciate that as well. Like I say, always, I wish you great blood sugars, straight CGM lines, if you can have access to a CGM. But most of all, I wish you a happy, healthy mind with it all. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.